Meny, Alyson and I talked briefly on Friday, uh, and if I can go first, and then she'll
Yeah,
go after me. Okay. And then, because I do have to jump off like right at like 2, I have a 2 o'clock Zoom call.
yeah, no,
Okay.
not a problem. Perfect.
Okie dokie.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you. We're gonna start in a couple of seconds over here,
Hmm.
and we are live on the group as well. Wait for Alyson to come back, and we're gonna start our session right in time. Right in time. Okay. So it is 1 o'clock. Start. Thanks everybody for joining. And if you're on our KW Shares group, welcome as well. Thanks for joining. Very excited about the session today. We have incredible, two powerhouse women over here and producers for many years. Both Shannon Jones out of the Coastal office. Hey, Shannon.
Hi there.
Hey, and we have Alyson Silverman out of the Silverman team out of the Calabasas office.
Hey!
Hello. Just down the hallway for me at today. So thank you for making the time, and happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Yeah. So pretty much what the topic is talking about today, and I'm excited, to dive into it. Is about the virtual connection, or specifically into the listing presentation, how you engage sellers, how do you convert, and how fast you adjust it, and what it is that you're doing right now. So if you don't mind, just we'll start at just a brief kind of like background about each, and then I'm going to start. So Alyson, just a quick background about, what's your story?
Oh, my story.
60 seconds, go.
Oh, boy. I didn't know I had to say that. Okay, so I've been an agent since 2006, I think. Residential. I got into REO pretty quickly. REO disappeared, so I had to reinvent myself. REO is still a part of my life currently, and I love listings, and I love helping people. I don't know, what else did you want me to say?
That's a good.
I like long walks on the beach. I'm a Cancer.
Thank you, Alyson. Awesome. Shannon.
Okay, so I got into real estate in '98, so I've been doing this for quite a while, and got into it after having a horrible experience buying my first home, and so my focus is really kind of on education and providing kind of a context for people when they're doing things. And my husband works with me, so we have a small team. We're in flux right now, but so we're a small team. And my emphasis really is more on the listing side. And we do online marketing, but I had not done a lot of virtual meetings prior to COVID-19. So it's been kind of a steep learning curve for me, and I'm still learning. There you go.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the right attitude for sure. And once again, thank you both for taking the time. I know that you both are busy. Shannon, how about you gonna open up and lead us, share whatever you want to share. We'll kind of take that, from there, evolve into
Okay, perfect.
Discussion.
So my very first listing appointment online was with a 93-year-old woman who had a hard time getting onto Zoom, and her daughter had to kind of help her get Zoom loaded up. And she was actually contacted us via Zillow, and said she wanted to sell her house. So a lot of when somebody contacts me first, there's a lot of questions that I run through, but in this case, it was her sister had passed away and she was the successor trustee, reverse mortgage on the house, and I need to sell. So not being able to go out there and meet with her and not being able to go and, physically view the home initially was kind of a hurdle. And so, in fact, her daughter, who is a little younger, obviously, and more tech savvy, was able to kind of do a walk through the home with me on Zoom. And then I went through comparable sales with her. With her, I didn't go through a ton of presentation because she very much was like, I want to sell my home and I need you to help me. And so there wasn't a lot of necessarily kind of selling myself. My background in terms of how do I do a listing presentation when we don't have these restrictions, I do have a presentation that I've sometimes done on my iPad, and then sometimes I have, a booklet that I take out. And a lot of that really depends on the person. And so needing to shift into, having a digital presentation every time has been different for me. And so I really have kind of two presentations that I use depending on the person and how quickly I want it to be and where I think they're at in terms of the process. And so in our initial contact, I ask a lot of questions about do they need to sell, or are they just interested, and are they living there now, are they not, what are their plans when the property is on the market? Will we be able to, show it easily, i.e. it's going to relatively easily, if you call it PEAD and protective gear easily, or way more difficult if it's actually going to be occupied. So right now I have some folks I'm going to be talking to on Friday, and I was contacted by their son, and their plan is to be there, but they're in their 70s. So clearly this is not a good plan. And so, a lot of it is sort of figuring out what's the situation, and are they, have they sold a home before? Are they familiar with how things work now? Do they plan on talking to other agents? What are they hoping to get for the house? So all this kind of standard sort of pre-qualifying questions, so I know what answers to cover in my presentation. So if this is a $700,000 house, and for some reason Zillow says it's $900,000, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time on pricing. For example, with the 93-year-old woman, and we're now about ready to close escrow on this one. But initially, when I asked her if she had a sense of what the home was worth, she said, well, I'm guessing around $700,000. And that was not what it was worth. And so we had to kind of do some educating in the process. But once I was able to go through that with her, she kind of got it. So when I get the person on the line, I'm going to, let me see if I can share my screen here, if I can get the right screen. Click here to start sharing this screen. All right, let's see if I'm sharing the right one.
You got it.
I don't know, are you seeing a screen?
Yeah, we see your CMA.
Okay, you see a CMA. Okay, well, let's just, we'll pick one here. Let's pick this one, in fact. So they just launched now this View Live, but for her, what I did was view PDF. And so this is really, this is just like the cloud CMA one. And so for her, I really wanted to keep it kind of simple. And so I just, and this is the example that I use with my, 90-year-old woman, but I'm kind of walking her through what is Keller Williams. And with her, I, really just kind of skimmed on this, and a little bit about our team, a little bit about me. I'm going to skip all that for you guys. And then I go into marketing, and this has some kind of general information on marketing. We also have put together a guide to selling your home during a pandemic. And so prior to my meeting, I'm sending that out to people, and then I can tell if they've clicked on it. Mm-hmm. And so that will tell me how much time to spend on that. But obviously some of this we're not doing, as much staging, but we are still doing a lot of internet marketing. And I talk about really the importance of that even more so now. So I spend some time on that, and as well as social media. We're not doing as much in the way of postcards because people really don't love the printed stuff right now. But I go over a little bit of overview in terms of our marketing plan and how that's changed, and yet how it's also remained the same. And then it goes into pricing, and these are all pretty familiar slides. If you are using any kind of a CMA, you're going to recognize the these charts and graphs and whatnot. And then I get into, okay, here's your home, and here's the other homes that are surrounding it, and actives, pending, sold. What does each of those mean? How is that relevant to the pricing of that home? And then in this case, okay, so if the average home is 616, what makes your home one that would sell for 7? Probably nothing. In this case, it had teal green carpet and holes in the counter, so that was really unlikely to happen. And then, but working in your favor is the fact that there's one active listing, and it's priced way higher than anything has sold. And so in this area, that creates a kind of a seller's market, and here's how that can benefit you.
So Shannon, just one question. So the same way, of course, right now you're doing it, you're going a bit faster naturally, but this is pretty much a conversation with the seller.
Absolutely. And then, and then I will ask them when I get to this point, how much of this information I'm going to go into, all of, these details will depend on how much they get it once we look through this. And so I'll actually say, so you can see the average home in this area that was this square footage sold for this, but there's a range from, on the low end, 512,000 to on the high end, 675,000. Would you say your home is above average, average, or below average? And I'd much rather that they tell me that than, if it's above average, I'm happy to tell them that. But if the home is below average, it would be great if they come out and tell me that, so that I don't have to insult their home. So once we do that, I like to ask them, if you were a buyer and I had just showed you all of this information and this was a home you wanted to buy, what price do you as a buyer think that you would offer? And the interesting thing is, even though as a seller, a lot of times they will give you a number that's relatively high, if you ask themselves to flip around and tell you as a buyer, what price would you offer? Suddenly, a lot of times that's a very different number. And so if I can get to, pretty close to what I think it's going to be right here, then I'm not going to go into all of the details of each thing. But if they tell me a number that's totally different, then I'm going to go, really into okay, this is the home that is, most comparable to yours. Let me try and find one. It just doesn't matter, but this is not that one. But like, this is a home that's most comparable to yours, and here's what it looks like, and here's what the market said it was worth, and then I'm going to kind of go through that. But the other thing is, if you go back now, this wasn't there, but I really like, now Cloud CMA gives you the option of, that's not the right one. Huh. Why is that? I wonder if it was the old one. Yeah. So Cloud CMA now gives you the option of this, which is a little bit different, which is their live CMA. And so instead of it looking like an actual booklet, this one lets you kind of walk through it a little bit differently. And so it'll actually, depending on what their level of understanding is, you can go a little bit more into what is a CMA and how is it created and how accurate are they. And so there's a lot of different slides and components that they've actually built in here. And it also gives you a little snapshot of some of the high points that the data shows. So what's the average price? What's the average price per square foot? The average time to sell, 18 days on the market. And I think that a lot of potential sellers right now have the misconception that things are taking a really long time to sell. And that's not necessarily the case. A lot of neighborhoods, time on market right now is very fast because the inventory is still so low. But you have to be really careful because, like in Long Beach, for example, if you're looking at East Long Beach, like 90808, 90815, the inventory is very low and things are selling very quickly and there's multiple offers. If you're looking at condos in downtown Long Beach, that inventory is building rather rapidly and the demand is extremely low, particularly if you're looking at like, above 500,000. I just did, things there aren't moving. And so I just did an analysis from like showing time data, and there were something like in the last 30 days, 28 showings through showing time for condos between 400 and 500,000, but for 500,000 plus, there were 2. And so it's really important as you go into the CMA to know, are they in a pocket where there's, really high demand and low inventory, or are they in a pocket where it's the reverse? Because if you set their expectations based on comparable sales that are 60 days, 90 days out, and the trends have changed and they're changing that rapidly, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment and them as well. I kind of like the way the comps are with this version, because you're much, more easily able to see them side by side. And it also points out really the differences very nicely. So you can see, what are the lot size differences, what are the bedrooms, bathrooms, and then if you want to get into any of the nitty gritty on any of them, it lets you very easily kind of click into that, and then you can kind of, go through the photos. So that I like a lot. The other option that I have for presentations is if I think I'm going to be going up against another agent. So I always want to know, are you talking to other agents? Who else are you talking to? When are you talking to them? So I have a sense of where I stand competitively. And if I'm going to be talking to a seller who is talking to other agents, then I want to make sure that what I'm presenting to them doesn't look like what every single other agent is presenting to them. And so a lot of agents do use Cloud CMA. I've played with Dash CMA too, but I'm not as familiar with it on the fly to be able to do it online. And so I'm kind of, the Cloud CMA is kind of more my comfort level. But this is also one that I had for my iPad, and I've got it in Google Slides. And so it's really easy for me to then instead do this, which looks a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. And this has a lot of the same information, so I can kind of go through it. And at the beginning of any of the conversation, of course, I'm spending some time talking to them about what their needs and wants are. Have they sold a home before? What's important to them about the process? What are their goals? And if that didn't work out, what would their plan be? And all of those kinds of questions that we really need the answers to in order to be able to do a good job. But this lets me sort of pause and remember to ask that. Very nice. And then again, it just kind of goes through, Keller Williams, we're the #1 company. And then, I talk a little bit about what we do here, selling, buying, consultative approach, and we have a team concept and ongoing service.
Did you get to use this presentation virtually yet, Shannon?
Yes, yes. And then, who are we? So it's not just me, who else is on our team? Right now, you can see we're sort of in flux. So some of these are titles versus names. Brad is a constant, but there you go on the others. And then this slide, how do buyers search for property? And this was true even before COVID-19, but I talk about the fact that now this is even more so important. And, buyers are home searches are up. And so sales are not up, but home searches are up. And so how their home appears online is absolutely critical. And I go into a little bit here again about how we're doing, virtual tours, we're doing photos, we're doing video. If there's a way to show it up online, we're showing it up online that way. And we're doing, virtual open houses. And then this one I talk about the fact that although a lot of buyers, do find their home, are searching online, they don't all find it there. And so the fact that we're also doing a lot of marketing directly to other agents and a lot of networking with agents, that's very important because about a third of buyers do find their home through a real estate agent. Then there's some other avenues that are important. And then, I talk about the fact that we're really proactive and we analyze who the target market is and we're actively seeking, buyers and yada, yada. And then, staging, there's a little bit on that. And then I bring up the concierge service. And so this is something that can benefit them if they have work that would make sense to do to the property, and cash flow is an issue, so they don't want to come up with the cost out of pocket. This is something that can be to their advantage. So I talk a little bit about that. And then I talk about photography, and this is an example. This is a home that was on the market with another agent for 180 days and did not sell. And we listed it and, just had our stager come in and make some basic suggestions and got new photos and put it back on the market at the same price. Yeah, and so I showed them, like, I can tell you that photos make a difference, but let me tell you, this home spent 180 days on the market, and at the same price, we were able to sell it with multiple offers in less than a week. And so, pardon?
I love the waters on the dog crate.
Right? It's really nice. And the fact is, it was a nice home, but it just wasn't selling. Printed materials, again, we're not doing a lot of that right now, but that's still in there. And I talk about, online marketing and how important that is. I talk a little bit about Zillow being the most used website. I don't love Zillow, but we do advertise on Zillow to the point where we're a premier agent, so that if a buyer calls or inquires about their home on Zillow, they can be assured that that inquiry will come to me or my team, and that we're familiar with their home and we're invested in selling their home, not just a home. Whereas if they hire an agent who is not a premier agent, it will go into a random pool of agents who are only getting their that inquiry because they pay Zillow. And then we talk about a little bit about targeted social media advertising. I suggest that they go on, if they're on Instagram or they're on Facebook, LinkedIn, that they actually go on and see how do our listings show up there, and look at the engagement, because there are some agents who will have an Instagram account or something, but if they post the listing there and it gets 4 or 5 likes, that's not very good engagement. And a lot of buyers are on social media right now, so it's very important that they work with an agent who understands that and can leverage that. I talk a little bit about Proxio, which is available through our MLS, and video tours. We have a lot more YouTube presence than we used to. And then this is kind of, in a normal market, our listing formula timeline as far as when we get photos, when we put it on the MLS, when we go live. This is modified a little bit because traditionally we would do sort of premier open houses Saturday, Sunday, and then try and not look at offers until after the weekend. And now, of course, nobody knows what day it is. So it doesn't matter as much, I think, when you launch it. With a couple exceptions, I don't recommend personally ever launching the listing on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Simply because I think a lot of people have already figured out what homes they want to, if they're going to be viewing it in person or driving by, they've already figured out by Thursday or Friday morning which are those homes. And then when you launch it, I think Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you miss out on maximizing your activity for the first weekend.
That's a good point.
And so I talk about that. And then I go into pricing. What are the factors that impact the price of their home, and which of those factors can they impact? So location we can't change, condition they can change if they choose to, and then competition we also can't change. So I go into a little bit about, if we list your home at 600,000 and there's a home that comes on the market and it's, more upgraded than yours on a bigger lot and it's larger and they list theirs at 600,000, how do you think that will impact the number of buyers who would look at yours and what they might offer? Because I want them to understand that we can't control a lot of factors on the market. And let's see, then again, these are the same kinds of charts and graphs that you see in the other one. A lot of this is very similar regardless.
Sure, yeah.
And then from here, I would talk about, in an ideal world, what we would do is we would look at 5 current listings, 5 properties in escrow, and 5 sold properties that were within about 10 to 15% of the same square footage as yours, within about half mile to a mile, and we would look at what did those sell for, what were they listed for. This isn't an ideal world always, and so sometimes I can't pull that many actives or pendings. There just aren't any. But from here, then I would transition into, if I was using Cloud CMA, into the comps from that and just switch to that screen. And I go a lot slower than I'm going now because I want to allow enough time for you to also present. And I do tend to be somewhat wordy. Sorry, but that's what happens. And so that's kind of my presentation. I then ask them if they have any questions and would they like to get started. That's my big close.
Yeah, I love it. This is good stuff. And once again, as you mentioned, I mean, naturally, this Google slide that you guys created with your own content or whatever, this is something that you built, but a lot of the content is similar to other presentations because it's relevant materials, and it's pretty much comes down to, if I had to guess or to point out, is how you carry the conversation and how you lead the conversation, right? So
exactly, because these are just tools. The slides are really just tools, and like you said, a lot of that is all standard information that's already in any of the kind of prepackaged presentations, whether you're getting it from Command or you're getting it from Cloud CMA or Dash CMA. All of that information is already there, and so you can use any of that information. You can rebrand it, and you could have somebody in Fiverr do it, or you could have a graphic designer and have your own spin on it. But it really is just about engaging with the customer, asking them the right questions, figuring out what's important to them, and then letting them know what's going on with the market and what would you do to sell their home, and what is it worth, and then do they feel comfortable and with you and confident that you would be able to get their home sold. And that's kind of all it boils down to.
Yeah, and whoever is watching, if you, I've been to a few Shannon Jones sessions and Alyson sessions as well, and you'll see that what I like about what you do it, you're not making this up. The same way that you explain to us, right? And all of us right now, we have probably, I don't know, just under 100 people between all the two platforms right now enlisting consultation with both of you right now, right? So it's the same thing, and I like the fact that you're taking us, right, the consumer, step by step, still make the person feel very comfortable, yet you have the full control, and you set expectations to begin with, even like how many, up to how many comps I'm going to show you, right? That nothing is casual. It's all well planned.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that I really, really like about a virtual presentation versus a live, in-person presentation is
No
that,
traffic?
huh? Yeah,
No
that's good
traffic?
too. But if I go out, and if I do it on my tablet, if I do it on the iPad and I'm swiping through, first off I have to remember to swipe the right way, but because I think it's backwards. But anyways, but if I do it with my booklet, people always want to like flip forward, and there is no flipping forward here. I mean, we really, I think, are a little bit more in control of the pace, and it's really important to stop periodically and check in and say, does that make sense? And do you have any questions on that? And can you see that would, impact what a buyer would think? Because, you want to make sure that you're not just talking at them, that you're engaging with them. And I think for me, that's one danger, because I could just like blah, 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 and nobody wants that. So.
Yeah. Alyson, you have the same, you have the same concept, listening presentation, virtual.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience the last couple of months.
Well, number one, my team, we're in flux as well. We are hiring. So
are we? Hello. All positions right now, by the way.
We have several positions.
Good job.
So, which is awesome, that we're in growth in this weird time. So we are used to being on Zoom for a daily huddle. So I've been doing this for, a couple of years now. So I'm comfortable with video. I don't know what just happened. Oh, there's Meny, just got so big. We also have moved towards video, so we're doing more video. So the first thing I want to say is no one really loves the way they look or sound on video. So the first hurdle is for everyone to get over that. Just start doing them, and then you can refine, maybe I need to not have shiny makeup, or right there, the for the future, maybe I don't want to have a shiny forehead, but, we have to get over that. So, and, I've done, with my nieces FaceTime. So you just look at it like that. So I think moving forward, I'm going to make a shift to do more Zooms on the initial call. And I don't want to duplicate anything that she said, because I have a similar presentation, but, there's different aspects that I'll walk through. So my last one I did, I knew them. I knew I had the listing. They weren't interviewing anyone else. So we literally walked through the house like this and did a staging consultation. Mm-hmm. So I got lucky because the mother is a little bit tech-tard, like, because she's older. The daughter is the techie. So we had, our tech consultant, and we made jokes about it. So that one is going to be ongoing. I particularly don't really want to go into the house because one of the daughters works on the COVID floor as a nurse. So we have to protect ourselves and everyone during this. So that worked out really nicely that I sent them the Zoom link, and we did we're still ongoing. It's, the staging consultation over video. I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to have a pre-listing questionnaire and do a couple other things. So when prepping for this, Shannon and I decided she's going to go first, and then I'm going to say what I do. No matter, even if you're doing this through Zoom, FaceTime, or whatever, you must drive by that house before you speak with that seller or have that listing appointment. So there's things you're going to find out by driving by the house. Normally what I do is I drive by the house, I take a picture, and that picture appears in my listing presentation. And they're like, wow, that's my house. How'd you get that in there? So they know it's been tailored to them. But you find out it could be a 10,000 square foot lot, but it's all hill. And you wouldn't have seen that on the Zillow, or on Google Maps because you can't see hills. You find out that the neighbor has a RV parked in their driveway that they share, and it's an eyesore. That wasn't in the Google Maps picture at the time when the Google Maps took the picture. There's all sorts of things that you find out. You find out that, wow, you can see a lot of damage on the exterior, so the interiors, you're kind of prepared for that being indicative of what's going in. But there's all sorts of information you can find out by driving that neighborhood and seeing that house and the location. There could be a school across the street that you didn't notice. And yeah, you can do some of this with the aerial maps, but nothing is more important than being there and seeing what you're dealing with, because, you have to know, hey, I noticed that your townhome is an end unit. That's going to fetch you $5 to 10 grand more than the neighbor's unit. So it is critical that you drive by and know the neighborhood. And you might want to drive by some of the comps too. So, the pre-listing questions are critical, like Shannon said, because you're going to tailor your presentation to that person. She asks, are you interviewing other agents? You might want to ask, what's important to you about a listing agent? What's the most important thing? They're going to say that we get the most money. Okay, so their bottom line. Most likely they're going to say that. Their bottom line is critical, so you have to prove value. Do you have any other homes that you need to sell? That's an extra 50 grand in your pocket, like a year. A lot of people don't ask that question. I've had several clients tell me they have several other homes. Maybe they're not ready to sell them yet, but they will be one day. So I need to know that. Another question is, she said, what do you think your home is worth? A great question to ask is, what number won't you go below? So if the house is worth in the 600s and they won't go below 700, there's a possibility that I might not want to go on the listing appointment at all. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're going to say, well, I'm waiting to see what you have to say. Well, I know, but you have a number in mind. What number? You keep having that. You have to push back and ask that question. And it also, the way they answer that, which is kind of why I want to do this call on Zoom from now on, the way they answer that, how reasonable or unreasonable they're going to be. So when you're going through the comps, you know how to kind of address it. Look at this guy. He listed it higher, and he's been on market 180 days, but the average days on market in this area is 15. So are you willing to make, 6 months of house payment because you don't want to adjust your price? I mean, I'm not going to say it like that, but is this a client that I want to have for 180 days? So I also have a list of homes I've sold. In my presentation, I have a list of recommendations, what people have said about me. I have a letter from a corporate client recommending me. I go over, the importance of staging. I am staging certified, so I discuss that. I go over the market stats. That is our job, to explain to them the market. The average days on market for their area. And while Shannon uses, I don't know what that was, Cloud CMA, because I don't use it. I use Dash CMA, which goes over a lot of that stuff. And they also have an interactive link that you can send them beforehand. So, I mean, there's some clients that don't have email and they can't do Zoom and they don't have a computer, but when they do have an email, I like sending that link beforehand so they kind of understand where the market is. Every agent puts a super on, not everyone explains it. So I go over the safety and the reasons why we have a super and how it works. And then I update them with showings. And then, in a down market, we can follow up, to see how interested other agents' buyers are. I also go pretty, briefly over the TDS and the SPQ because, one of the questions is, is you have to know, is it a fixer or not? If it is a fixer, are there things that we need to disclose? If someone's been in their house for a long time, they've had a leak and they've had it repaired. So I want to go over how I protect them with that document from a lawsuit. Disclose. When in doubt, disclose. Even if it was repaired, disclosed. And I talk about how I do my AVID, and I will disclose what you've told me, but you need to protect yourself as well. So it's another layer of protection, keeps you out of a lawsuit. I also offer a listing home warranty, especially if they're moving prior to the close, and no one's there to watch over the house. I'm protecting it. I'm their eyes and ears. It's easier. Let's say the water heater leaks. It's easier to have a repair done and covered, whether or not they're living in the house or not. My job is to make their life easier. So I do go over the listing warranty. I go over a lot of the stuff that Shannon had. Depends on the price range, what kind of video I'm going to do. Now, because of COVID, I'm doing a floor plan. My photographer offers that for $25. Always on YouTube, always on social media. So if it's a higher end property, not a townhome, not a REO, I'll do a Matterport. So I have either the what's it called? Panoramic video or the Matterport, some kind of virtual tour. And then I will most likely do a tour through the property myself, with my gimbal. I think that's what it's called. And I'll splash that all over social media. And yes, we do have to address our relationships with other agents. So, and the marketing towards the other agents, because most likely that another agent is going to sell the house statistically. So we have to talk about how we, keep our agents' relationships good and professional, and they're our clients as well, and that we do e-blast to 20,000 agents, blah, 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 and all that stuff. And then there's all the new COVID stuff that you have to talk about, that we all know that's, Rich and Richard's job, that they're doing wonderfully. So, I think that's
changing.
Yes. And you have to say that. So
yes, exactly. Like here you go. Here's this form, but now it's a different form.
Yeah. I might be posting things on your door weekly as car changes. So yeah.
Yeah. There's always something. Good stuff. Question for both of you, and you kind of mentioned a little bit of it, but is there anything today that you do either very different than before, or things that are brand new that you added to your business due to the circumstances?
For us, obviously, and I think for most agents, virtual open houses, that's totally different. We weren't doing that before. We did a lot of open houses, but virtual open houses is totally different. And we had gotten away from doing the Matterport tours. We were doing videos. We do videos on every single listing, whether it's a 1-bedroom condo or $1 million house, like every single listing. But we weren't doing the 3D Matterport tours because I think people really like the video better. And yet now with COVID, we're doing both on every listing. I think it's a little bit of overkill. And I think once people can get back into the homes, we won't. But I have a photographer, videographer now who can go in one time and do all three. And so because of that, we're doing all three. Um, those are the only things I think that are really different for us. Oh, I know. I guess the other thing I think for me that's different is really the level of, and I do share this with them, whether they're living there or not. Our job is obviously to sell the house, but it's also to keep them safe and to protect them from liability. And so we really do, stay up to date on, what are the forms, what are the protocols, and make sure that, people are following it. And for us, if somebody wants to show a listing, I mean, obviously, yes, we need the signed PEAD, and we're putting on our super lock boxes that we're doing now, we're doing them all with CBS codes, so call before showing codes. So if I don't have the signed PEAD with the correct date, the agent doesn't get the CBS code. It's as simple as that. Like they can't just go and use it without doing that. But the other thing is on our occupied properties, in addition to the signed PEAD, I want a current pre-approval letter and proof of funds for the down payment. And that's not something that we were asking for before. But if we're going to have somebody go in, I feel like that's really valid for us to ask for that. And so I let them know that, our job is to sell their house, but it's also to protect them and to make sure that their interests are represented.
Yeah, good. It's very similar, buyer or seller. I'm using COVID to as an excuse. So if I'm working with a buyer, I say, hey, the listing agent is requiring, your pre-approval. So I know they're serious, and it's my safety too. I mean, it's a day of my time, and me going out in front of them and other people and outside. So and then all of my current listings are vacant. However, if I did have an occupied home, I was going to say absolutely I'd require proof of funds and a pre-approval letter. There will not be looky-loos in this market, and that makes our job so much easier. So Rob Thomas says, what's great about this? Well, there's a lot of great things. Let's simplify. Yeah, we also send out the OSHA with the CBS code, the OSHA notice. And because I have vacant listings, people are like thinking they can go direct. I never put vacant in the MLS.
We don't either.
Yeah, so
that's a good tip. It's a good note.
Yeah, I never. Even in a regular market.
No, because people will search that way, and you really don't want them to be. There's no reason, a legitimate reason, that you would want anybody to identify your listing just based on that status.
Yeah, I've had too many sheriff lockouts and meeting the sheriff to doubt squatters. So.
Well, or those random Craigslist ads where the person has moved out of the area and they just need someone to take care of it at this below market rent, yada yada.
It just solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So we are requiring a CBS code. In order to get the CBS code, you have to send us an updated, correctly signed PEAD. So we were having a lot of problems with agents not understanding how to use a CBS code, how to send the updated PEAD, how to search supplements, how to sign the PEAD correctly. So we just completed some videos, and I get a little frustrated in there. For the love of glory, I read the MLS instructions. I say that, but otherwise it's going to get boring. You got to throw my personality. You got to see my frustration. And I'm using it as a recruiting tool because I say if your broker isn't training you, come on over to ours. We'll get you trained up lickety split, kind of thing. So this is another opportunity to recruit. I mentioned I'm hiring in them, and they can see my personality. So they know, it's no surprise what they're getting. So now we're, we also put a form on there. It's on the floor. I laminated, this just exactly what I posted in the MLS instructions. We need the PED updated, signed, properly signed. Then you'll get the CBS code. And then we were getting people calling us, well, I don't know how to work the CBS code. Here's super support 877. So that's up on all the listings now, because we're getting super busy and we have to streamline everything. So, which is all fantastic stuff. So,
if you're watching and you're not sure how to work that CVS code or what have you, we are going to have a separate session later this week or next week to help you out. So you're going to make your life and everybody else's life easier.
Because
when you go into the super app, it will walk you through it.
So I don't understand that. So they do have a video on ChrisNet on how to set the CVS code. And I know how to do that, so I'm the listing agent. They don't have a video on how to use it. And it's just one extra step. And I feel it's very user-friendly and kind of, obvious, but it's a,
I do
1 minute
too.
video. Yeah, it's a 1 minute video, and I'm not super support. So I can't be, I feel that's disruptive to my business and really not fair. We're supposed to be working, other agents are our clients. So if I'm going to, show your listing, Shannon, I want to make sure you understand that I'm going to make your life easier, not harder. And our first interactions, if I haven't read the MLS and I say, how do I show that? Is that baked in? If I start being a pain in your tushy right now, that's indicative of how the escrow is going to go, and you're not going to want to be in escrow with me. And
if I have choices, you probably won't be the agent who's offer out shoes.
You're going to help somebody else because you don't want to be in escrow with me. So I don't want that. I want you to help me. So because
you're not going to know how to write a repair request either, right? If you can't do a CVS code.
You got it. You're not going to know if you can't figure out how to pull down a supplement. Wow. How are you going to write a contract? So, I know that it's going to be, the whole escrow is going to be on my plate, and I don't particularly want that. So we have to be nice to each other. We have to show each other that we know what we're doing. So you have to do your research, prepare, and let the other person know that it's going to be a dream as far as you can, within your control, unless the buyer loses their job or something unforeseen happens. I'm going to make both of our lives easier because I like ease. So yeah.
Everyone likes ease.
Some people like drama.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Thank you, Todd Pearl, for sharing that instructions about the Supra key. He posted on the shares group, and I just added to the app as well. So that's
wonderful.
Much appreciated. What else, ladies? Just to sum up this great session. Anything else you would like to add?
I will just give one tip, and that is because we both talked about really kind of wanting to have a sense of what price the seller had in mind, really at the outset, because I think a lot of that sort of shapes your conversation, and it shapes how much time you're going to spend on pricing. And I'd really rather not have to spend a whole lot of time on it if I don't have to. And so, and I think that I run into the same response that Alyson shared, which was, when you say what price is it that you want to sell for, a lot of times people will say, well, that's what we want you to tell us. Well, we have a number in mind, but we really want you to share with us what you think first. And so one of the ways that I'll respond is to say, absolutely, and I'm planning to do that. But it's always nice for me to know whether the number that I come up with is going to excite you or disappoint you. And so that I have a better idea, let me ask you this. What is the amount that you would like to, everything is said and done, you've paid all of your, fees and costs, and your loan is paid off. What's the amount that you'd like to end up with, that you'd like to net? And that they will usually tell you, okay? They have that number in mind. And then you say, terrific. And so that I can prepare an accurate net sheet for you, approximately how much do you owe on the home now? And they'll also usually tell you that. Well, if you know what they want to net and you know what it is that they owe, then what it is that they're hoping to sell it for, that's a simple algebra problem now. It's super, super easy math to get at what they want. And they've never told you.
Yeah.
And some of them don't even realize that they've just told you what they want to sell for. So that's my tip.
Yeah,
Right.
that's happened to me in the past. Yeah, where they've said I need to net 300,000, and I do the math quickly. I'm like, that's not even possible.
Yeah.
Is this seller like, oh my God, unrealistic? And you also have to define up front who your ideal client is. So is my ideal client someone that's just completely, dreaming and no.
Yeah.
My ideal client is someone that's going to want to sell and price reduce accordingly. So, I know a sign in the yard is better than a sign in your car, which we don't, if you're not in a car anymore, but, so you're going to get sign calls and stuff like that. But that's also my time. It's a time suck.
We had a referral recently from a client I'd met at a real estate conference this last year. And so she referred me to some neighbors of hers who had inherited a condo in Long Beach. And this was pre-COVID, but so I went out and I met with them and I tried everything I could to try and get at what was the number they wanted prior to going out, and I couldn't get it. And then I went out and looked at the condo, and it was god awful. I mean, the most gaudy, awful place I've been in years, but with a spectacular view. And it was maybe worth 1.3 million, because it really was very large penthouse in a luxury building with a spectacular view. And then I finally got from them what was the price that they wanted to sell it for. $2 million. $2 million, like my jaw almost dropped. Okay, and how did you come up with that number? And it was a neighbor who'd said yada, yada, yada. Okay, and what's your plan if you don't sell it for that? Well, we wouldn't take a penny less than that. Okay, and a lot of times if I have an inkling that people are going to be unreasonable, I use, that script up front that, when we're reviewing their needs and expectations, that if we come across a need or an expectation that you have that I won't be able to meet or exceed, then I'd rather let you down now than disappoint you later. And so I had to pull that out and use it and say, if you find an agent who you believe can get you that price for the home, then I'd encourage you to go ahead and hire them. But if that doesn't work out and you'd like to have me work with you in at some point in the future, feel free to give me a call. But I can't meet that expectation.
Yeah.
And I have not seen it come on the market, but maybe it will, and then it will sit.
and I love that because it supports your professionalism. And once again, back to being in control. We can't really control on most of the parts of the transaction, but we can definitely control on the conversation and how we present ourselves. So this is good stuff. Okay, I don't see any other question that came in. I mean, you guys pretty much, you ladies, addressed most of the stuff. Good things, and I appreciate you. And just a shout out to both of you for adjusting your business overnight, pretty much, right? From what you've been doing for a long time to just, okay, this is the new normal, and I'm just going to embrace it and go with it. So good job on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go jump on a Zoom call.
Yeah, Shannon Jones, Alyson, Silverman, thank you, ladies, so much. Good job.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you, and thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Thank you for watching.